Just going to let some more people in. So we're going to be talking about drone and geospatial product development. We have a panel of experts. We're going to bring them on one at a time. Each speaker has a different background. We have a marketing expert, we have a software engineer, we have a hardware engineer, and we have a data scientist. And if anybody has any questions, don't wait for the Q&A to start. Pop them in the chat, and we will get to those questions. If we can't get to your questions in the Q&A, we will come back to you with an answer. And I'm just going to make sure we got everybody in. And come in, join. We're just starting in 1 or 2 minutes. I'm really excited about this. I've been learning. I'm fairly new to drones and geospatial. I've been learning about it over the course of this year. And something that we do at Radency, we do software development for drones and geospatial. We're going to have one person from Radency on, but we're not going to be doing a sales presentation. And it's very exciting. And I'm still learning myself. It seems like every day there's something new to learn. And I'm going to start. Bring my first speaker on. And ads. Linda, I'm bringing you into the spotlight.
Okay.
Welcome. We're on stage together.
Mm-hmm.
And now, about half of what I know about geospatial, I think I learned from Linda. And I'm wondering if you could, and thank you so much. I know it's really early and it's dark outside where you are. You're coming from Seattle,
San
Washington?
Francisco. No, East Bay, San Francisco area.
Oh, sorry.
Bay
I don't know
area.
why I thought for some reason, okay, Seattle. But why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Yeah, my name is Linda Stevens, and I have been doing geospatial since college. I went to school at UCLA, and I took my first geography class right around when I was graduating, and I stayed another year just to finish in my geography degree. But I also took programming and communications, so that's my 3 kind of trifecta. I landed a job for the summer back in a little town called Redlands, which is where the largest GIS company in the planet, called Esri, ESRI. And it was about 100 people at the time. I came in to do digitizing, and kind of fast forward, I saw it grow. This was in 1986, so I saw it grow from about a 100-person company, which was all services. When I started there, we were doing a lot of work for the government. And then it's now 50-50 services and product, about $1 billion plus company a year. It's still privately held, but it definitely, if you know anything about GIS and geospatial, they're definitely the world leader. They focus a lot on vector data. And we'll talk a little bit about that, or whoever, if you're interested. There's vector and raster. So GIS data versus kind of EO, Earth observation, satellite, remote imaging, drones, but those things are starting to merge. So I worked there doing prototyping, programming, lots of different things, ended up creating their marketing division in the early days, and then launched the company into global dominance, seeing it move from mini computers, prime computers, all the way now to SaaS. So I've seen that whole evolution, how we changed our tactics from everything from sales to delivery to marketing, turning it really into an enterprise system. So now GIS Esri is really a platform that's enterprise built into every component of an organization. So yeah, that's my experience. That's who I am. And I now have my own consulting company called Spatial Spirits.
And yeah. Linda runs her own webinars, her own events
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. I've put her LinkedIn profile in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
And now, one of the things we talked about, or when I first met you, is you mentioned that there are lots of mistakes, common
Mm,
mistakes that people make when they're first starting out in geospatial, things that
mhm.
trip them up. I'm wondering if you could kind of go over these common pitfalls and how people can
Yes.
avoid them.
And I have some slides because I am in marketing. But before I start, a lot of they're sort of generic, but they're also, I'll give geospatial examples because I see them in a lot of, it doesn't matter what kind of startup you're in. Um, like I said, I saw it from the inside, so I know kind of how we did it and grew it. So I'm going to talk about that. And then again, my lens is coming from as an exec at the table for a privately held large software firm, just sort of as background. So let me share if that's okay. Oh, I got
Mhm.
to send request to you.
You're allowed. I'll
Thank,
allow it.
thank you. Okay, continue this and then share. And then let me go.
We see it.
Perfect. Great. So yes, this is my presentation on startups, positioning for success. Like I said, I'm a geographer. I'm a big advocate for the earth. So I'm a geographer, as a geographer, that's one of my passions. Geospatial professional. I'm also very well versed across all technology because GIS is just a tiny component. We'll talk a little bit about that. You have to remember that when you're doing a startup, it's going to fit into a broader technology stack, and you need to understand all those levels. You just can't know your little piece of it. Marketer, and then now I'm an advisor. So when I want to look at the elements of success, I kind of look at it from short term, medium, and long term. And most startup companies will want to go right to the short term, which is how can I get revenue in right away. And by doing that, you sort of kind of miss on long-term success and even short-term success, because it's the way your sort of mindset is. You need to be set up for the long term. And if you can't do that, at least for the medium term. So the first thing I'm going to say, and the thing we battled at Esri all the time was focus, focus, focus. You got to first define what your company's going to offer, narrow it down and focus. Are you doing GIS? Are you going to be out there doing vector data? Are you going to be partnering with an Esri or a Carto or whoever? Or are you going to be involved in Earth observation or data collection? Where does it fit into this ecosystem, and define it very narrowly and stick with it? A lot of companies say, well, we're going to do X, and then a bid comes out that wants to do Y, and all of a sudden they're going to put all the resources running after that money. If you keep running after the money, you're never going to have the time to build your product. The other thing I'm going to say, and I know, and I'm literally just across the bay from Silicon Valley, and those guys would not like me telling you this, but you need to have a services component to your product company. They don't like to invest in service. VCs don't, but equity companies do like to do this. There's all sorts of funding we can talk about later, but services needs to be there because you need to be able to implement your product, because most people, hopefully you have a product that nobody's used before, it's brand new, and you need to be able to test it and customize it. I've never seen a product that just comes out right out of the box when you first think of it, that's 100% perfect, that everybody's going to need exactly what it is. So you're going to have some way of implementing it. Even if a lot of time those guys are just installing it and then giving you some training on it, those are still services, and that's money you can be bringing in. Next is, how do you launch it? And you're like, wait, I haven't built my product, like I've just defined it. And like, that's when you launch it. You need to introduce yourself to the community. Remember, you're launching your company. Yes, your company, not your product. So you need to introduce yourself to the community. You need to build respect, and you need to build your brand, right? So from a marketing perspective, you need to have somebody on your team. If it's not the CEO, it needs to be somebody very senior at the exec level who has a marketing background that can identify the target audience, communicate the value proposition, um, test those messagings early, find those early adopters, and then figure out what those early adopters budget cycles are like and get in their budget, because that's a year away, and you need to be able to get in there before their budgets are closed if you're planning on selling them anything in the next year. At the same time, after as your company's launching, you're starting to build your product. You're just going to start what I call version 1. And I keep telling when I advise startups, remember your version 1 is probably going to get thrown away. If you're an Esri user, you'll remember ArcView 1, which was just, we open sourced it after it launched. We rebuilt the entire thing, which actually turned into ArcGIS. So your development road is going to be curvy. It's not going to be straight. And I don't care what your CTO tells you, it's not going to be what that person has in their head, right? You need to be able to then have that team work with your services team. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's a partner, that those people need to work together so you can start implementing those pieces and bringing that feedback. It goes back and forth. And then you need to have your back end. Some people, when I talk to a CEO who's from the financials, they have this part all set. But a lot of people that are from the front end, the developer types, the engineering types, they don't even realize how important this back end is. You need to be able to get paid for your stuff. You need to be able to deliver it. Is it going to be SaaS? Is it going to be, how is it going to be an app? How is it going to be delivered? What's the cycles look like, and how are you going to do that? So when I talk a little about product or services, this is the way I think about it. You're looking at product 1. What is it? Who needs it? What does it solve? And you'll be surprised how many developers don't ask those questions. They just start coding. They're developers. They're not customers, right? They don't think from a customer level. So you need to work with your development team to say, okay, what's our first version? What is it that needs to be in that? And what does it solve? What problem am I solving? Because guess what? The answers to those questions feed your messaging, right? So marketing and development, CTO and marketing, they have a tight relationship. It doesn't have to be necessarily a kumbaya relationship. It can be a push and pull relationship. There's a little bit of that kind of play with all the execs on your team, but make sure development and the CTO have a relationship which is always ongoing. At the same time, you're going to be thinking about what your longer term product is, right? Again, product 1 is going to launch, but what's that next thing? Start working on that roadmap. Those things that you're not putting in the first version, put it on your roadmap. Don't lose those ideas. And then we used to always say this at Esri, because at Esri, more than half of our revenue still came in from services, is that they eat your own dog food, right? If your services group has to use your tech, they're going to be your testers. They're going to find the bugs. They're going to get that stuff worked out, as opposed to having your customers have to deal with it. And then they're great revenue generator. It kept Esri afloat to this day. Without services, Esri would not be $1 billion company. And it's also a great product incubator. All of the SaaS products that came out from Esri started as a services project. And so if I just look at it over time, I always say launch early. Don't wait till everything's done and you have some customers and then you go, I need to now hire a marketing person. I get this all the time. People call me up and it's like, when do we start marketing? It's like before you even created the company, even before you created the entity. So market your company vision, go to events, be a thought leader, do webinars, get your name out there. Identify services projects, find those, have somebody that's just dedicated to writing proposals that are going out there and finding your targets and then going after them. It's at this stage, funding will be services or angel or friends and family. Most VC, most people don't want to touch you until you have a product. And it's when you're building version 1. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if you can fund without VC money, that's, without investors, that's the best way you can go. There's nothing better than doing that. It sounds great to get a big tranche of money at the very beginning. It doesn't work out well for most companies. Next year, you launch the version, deliver to early adopters, expand the funding. And then when you go into that, you're evaluating the product, you're launching version 2, you're expanding market reach. You're going out beyond maybe your first market segment, maybe doing your second. And then you're going to identify new markets. And at the same time, you're starting to build that customer database, that building that customer loyalty, doing things for your customers, all that kind of stuff. And then real quickly, key market mistakes, funding too early, self-fund as possible. I'm a big advocate of that. Waiting to market. It takes time to get your message out. So we have a rule about 29, 30 times you have to get your message in front of your customers in order for them just to even think about it and absorb it. And that takes a lot of money and time. There's so many things you can do for free. Like I said, webinars, get your face out there, go to events, talk to people. And then it takes time to get budgets. And if you notice, I didn't say anything about hiring sales. And the reason I haven't said that is because your executives have to be your initial salespeople. That's just their role. If your CEO isn't a salesperson, then your COO or your CMO or somebody's got to be it. And the reason I say that is if you get a really high caliber salesperson at the beginning, they're very short-term thinkers. They want to close deals, and they're going to be pushing development for those early adopters, getting things to close that deal, when you should be going after services and making sure you're building the right product. Once your exec team understands what that sales cycle flow looks like for your company, then you can hire the right salespeople, and you already know what the sales process should be. Now, that doesn't mean, maybe your CEO is also really good at sales, probably would be, should be, if they're going to go out for funding, right? Your CEO needs to be on the road. If you're the CEO, you better like talking to people, because that's your job. At Esri, when we decided to go into the federal market, our CEO basically moved to DC. If you want to sell to federal governments, you got to have a presence in DC, for example. That's true globally. Understand your market. If you don't know who you're targeting, then you don't know where to send your CEO, and you don't want him or her spread out all over the place. Oh, and that's it. I hope I didn't take too much time, but yes, so that's me,
great.
and I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to add one thing actually to what Linda just said. With the webinars, and I know I might tooting my own horn here a bit, is don't just rely on the webinars. I know a lot of people do is they'll host a webinar and they'll put it on LinkedIn and wait for the phone to ring, and that's great. But go into LinkedIn and put what you do. Put the keywords related to what you do into the search box and type groups. And you'll see, for most industries, you'll see 4 or 5 groups with tens of thousands of people in them. Join the groups and post 2-minute clips from your webinars, or even just Zoom calls that you've recorded. 2-minute clips. They don't have to be fancy. They could just be clipped out of a Zoom call. That's fine, with a short little text with a key takeaway and some kind of call to action. Depends on what your business model is. Because you host a webinar, you might get 10, 20, 30, you might get 100 people watching live. You do the clips, thousands of people watch the clips. And if it's on LinkedIn, sorry, go on.
And the reason that's important is that, especially in the geospatial community, it's an insular community. It was created and managed and nurtured by Esri, and it's very tight, even though it's a large community. And you've got to start joining those in LinkedIn groups. Sharing videos of what your vision is will really kind of get you into that group, because they are hungry. They are hungry for new technology and new ideas. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if I can ask you a follow-up question.
Sure.
Before during your presentation, you were talking about the push-pull relationship between marketing and the CTO.
Yes.
And now, can you give a bit of types, because sometimes what I've seen is they don't want to do that. They don't necessarily want to be contentious. Everyone wants to say yes, or they'll just respect each other's turf. How do you get that going?
I think so another thing that's important, if this was a pure marketing thing, if you have to know your product inside and out as a marketing exec. So when I sat down with Scott, or when I was at an executive meeting with Scott, I knew GIS inside and out. So could I could debate him at his level, right? I didn't debate him on how he implemented it or, what was his, technology he used. It was more at those bigger levels. You need to be able to have that skin in the game, and you have to understand the market, and you have to understand your product really deeply. Um, it can be really stressful, right? And this is another huge part about when you do a startup. Your exec team, your core team needs to be more than just their individual value add. Like just because they're an accountant or just because they're somebody that knows how to build technology, they also need to be able to communicate and fight and be able to have a strong personality. Because we would have battles, huge battles throughout my 30 years there. Scott and I were always pushing hard on each other, and he would do the same thing. It's like, the problem is the messaging, right? And it's like sometimes it was, sometimes it's like, okay, I didn't get your vision, I need to pivot, right? Maybe when I went out too strong initially and the product wasn't ready yet, right? And then you have that clash because then he gets blamed when he shouldn't. So you have to be able to get in there and see both sides of it, but push forward for what is best for the company and
I
your
see.
customers.
I hear this a lot actually. Parallels um, in other industries is you have to be able to talk. You need it's a multidisciplinary approach, especially when
Yeah.
technology gets more complicated, and you have to be able to speak the other team's language to a certain extent.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And you'll see in some large organizations, execs get moved around to different departments. Like they'll be the head of one department, marketing, and then sales, and then services, and then even development, because that's why they're doing it, right? In a small startup like mine, like when I was at Esri, we had to do everything, right? I was doing demos, doing presentations, building out new prototypes for new markets, coding new things, as well as designing ads, right? You had to do everything.
all right. Now, Linda, I'm going to send you
Okay.
away,
Okay.
but don't,
I'm,
don't quit.
I'm
Don't
not.
quit on us. I'm going to move the spotlight. And if you want to hear more from Linda, check out her LinkedIn profile there. I put it in the chat. Now, if we can bring on our second speaker, and let's see if I can find him and um, can we start video and Bodan. Bodan, you're on mute.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me well? Because my
Yes.
mic sometimes goes crazy.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, Bodan. And
Okay.
Bodan's a colleague of mine, and we both work at Radency together. And by the way, if you want to know more a bit about what we do, I'm putting our our company LinkedIn profile into the chat. And but I wonder if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Um, I'm Bogdan. I'm delivery partner at Radency, and Radency actually is an outsourced software development company. At the core, I would say we are focusing on the web development, on the full stack web solutions, but also we do mobile desktop development independently of the tech stack. And we leverage usage of AI for different projects, for different domains like healthcare, prop tech, fintech. Uh, for the past couple of years, I was leading the projects that are geo-related and drone-related. I'm an engineer in the background. I have 10 plus years of experience in the past of an actual software development. And now I would say I'm performing different roles depending on the client needs. So I can start from the solution architect up to project product management, or like recently even doing some QA stuff, quality assurance. But it's actually like depends on the client, and I would say I'm filling the gaps. Um, yeah, now I'm kind of mostly, I would say, in most cases, I am performing as a bridge between our teams and client, ensuring that we're delivering the right thing in the right time.
So I got a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is because a lot of times people will have an MVP
Yes.
and they realize, oh, we need another feature.
Yes.
And you know, in a lot of cases, people will have and what Linda was speaking earlier, they might have a basic product, and now they want to market a service. So then we need to add features to our How do you add features to existing software packages? And how do you do that in an efficient way?
Okay. Um, First of all, I would probably I need to mention that you don't have to add new features to the MVP like directly, because probably sometimes your MVP is just a little bit grown POC, proof of concept, and actually you have to rewrite the whole thing from scratch. Probably you did a nice investigation, you answered some of your questions, but now you need to build something from the beginning. So if we were writing something from scratch, I would say it would be nice to use such a thing that is called feature flags. It's a thing where you can actually wrap your feature in such a flag, and you might probably have an admin page where you can turn on this feature for a specific client, for a specific tenant, or just for a specific time, just test with some amount of users and then like turn it off. This feature might not be as finished yet, but still can be enough for users to play with and test. This is one of the options. And for sure, to build such a system, you can do like go two ways. Either you build it from scratch or you use some third parties. It all depends on whether you want to be dependent on the third parties or you want to be independent, but you have to spend like more time for the development of that feature. So or a system, I would say feature flag is like kind of can be a really huge system. Then another way of adding features, I would say, is versioning. So when, as you mentioned, like you really have a software and you just need to extend it. So one of the things is actually do versioning. So I would say mostly it refers to an API to the backend piece where you have endpoints, like you need to fetch some data about user. And now you want to change it like drastically. You don't remove the previous version, you just add a new one, and then you have this new version which exists in parallel with the old one. But for sure, in such cases, you will now need to handle other things like compatibility, because what if you have, for example, your device, a tablet device, where like you're navigating a drone and you went to the field, you're offline, you had a connection with the old version, all was great, then you went offline. Meanwhile, the backend updated. Now you are still kind of on an old version on a tablet, but a new version on the backend. So now you also have to solve such challenges, I would say. It's not a problem. You still can solve them, but that's one of the things. If you just need to edit something, well, in this case, if you need to change something, there is no other way than write tests on top of it, I guess.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, you can also use feature flags to sell subscriptions on services. So once it's finished and it's published,
I would say it's a bit different system, a little bit, because feature flags I would mostly refer as a development thing. So development or like something for test. You wrap something into the feature flag, you deliver it, someone tests. If it's good, it can now go as a like fully working feature. But if you want it to be as a part of subscription, then for sure I would say there should be a bit different mechanism, because apart from just the feature, you need to collect some of the data, like, for example, which amounts of data you want user to process, for example, like 10 gigabytes, and this is the limit, or like, I don't know, how many drone seats you would have.
Okay. And quality. You touched early on about quality Q&A.
Yeah.
How is Q&A different and unique when you're working with drone and geospatial?
Um, okay. So here I would probably talk from the web perspective. So we are we are not doing much of like embed development, so I will not touch that piece. But from the web perspective, I would say you need to write tests. I will not open America saying that, but for sure, like there are different types of tests. For sure, you need kind of unit tests that will test your small chunks of code, especially related to, I don't know, data transformations. If we are talking about geo, it's like coordinate transformations from one system to another. You need tests to ensure that all of that is done properly. There could be end-to-end tests, which are kind of emulating the behavior of a user by just clicking on specific items and like passing through the flow. These are nice. I have in mind one specific example, but I will get back to it. Specifically with end-to-end, I would say sometimes it could be nice or interesting if you're using some solutions. For example, for one of the clients, what we are doing is actually using the same technology for the front end piece, like React. We've ported that platform like to web, to desktop, and to the tablet using a set of technologies. And all of that, since it was based on one technology, it was possible to write tests once and like get them working on other like devices, on a desktop, on a tablet, and it was a drastic, I would say, money save because you didn't have to write specific. Well, you had to write specific ones for specific moments, but like 80% of them were kind of working uh, under the hood, like same for different platform, which is nice. Yeah, so from the web perspective, it's hard to say what we have, what problems we have with quality assurance, but one of the things is maps. So for example, if you're doing the end-to-end tests and you want to, for example, you're building, for example, flight planning tool, and then you have this like canvas. I mean, if you're talking about the general web page, you have like under the hood internally, you have different elements like this is a text, this is paragraph, this is button, this is whatever. You can interact with them and you can point your software, like kind of click this, click here. But when you're working with map, it's like a canvas. And if we internally you look at it, there is no interactable elements. I mean, there are some, but sometimes not. And in this case, it's hard to like, oh, click me on this specific layer. You cannot do that. So in this case, you have to kind of imagine other ways how you can point at a specific location, like using other tools. This is one of the issues. Another issue with quality assurance, I would say, it depends on amount of data, because when, for example, you're working with Geospatial, you are processing the data. Your drone have collected thousands of images. Now they are being processed, and that process can happen really long. So it can be, I don't know, 6-8 hours, for example. And if something happens during that process, then you definitely not in a trouble, but like it's time consuming. Now you have to track the issue, but to reproduce it, you need another 4 hours just to test it. And sometimes you need to blindly fix that and then see if it works. For sure, you can use like smaller data sets to test that, but sometimes issues that are happening are usually like on a bigger scale. Jose, I'm not sure I can hear you.
Muted myself because they're doing construction work. Um, can you give some advice quickly because we're running out of time here?
Okay.
People who've got a technical background who are launching a geospatial or drone startup, what do they need to know that's different and unique about drone and geospatial software development that they may not know if they've come from a different kind of background?
Um,
or a different kind of domain, I should say, different domain? Or have you already
uh,
covered that in your previous answer?
Not exactly. I mean, I don't have like an advice, but the specifics, I would say, it can be integration with the hardware. So, for example, you have a software like on your tablet that needs to communicate with the drone. So you now need to understand the specifics of how data is transmitted between the device and your software. Between the device, I mean like UAV and your device, for example, like a tablet, like what protocols you have, like it's more of a domain logic now about it. Then integrations, for example, if you are working with a map and drone scan, I will talk from like my background. So in this case, you, for example, have a base station. Base station is a third-party device that you need to sync with to access, to get an exact location where you now, and then you need to set up, I don't know, Wi-Fi connection or Bluetooth connection. And in this case, yes, it's a third party. It's a third party, or say it's a hardware that you need to connect to. But the interesting thing is that sometimes interesting thing happen. For example, our connection was not working at home, but was working in the field. Why? Because of interfering with the signals around, like because of other flats using Wi-Fi routers and whatsoever, and like multiple devices. But in the field, all was working correctly. So you have to consider that you might have like issues that are not that obvious. And then lots of solutions. You just need to see around because lots of things are done in that specific area. They might be like doing one specific thing, but they can do it really nice, and you can leverage by using the third parties. You don't have to be afraid of using them, and I don't know, doing collaborations with them probably. You're muted, Jose.
I did it again.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I've got construction going on just on the other side of this wall.
No worries.
Boda, I'm going to send you away. I'm going to bring you back for the Q&A.
Yep, sure.
And now, if we could bring Jay, I'm going to bring you onto the screen. Hello, Jay.
Morning, or is it good evening there?
Um, it's good afternoon
Ah, good
or good
afternoon.
morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good
It's like good
afternoon.
afternoon, good morning, and good night. You could actually say
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Because we have people from all over the world. And
yeah.
I wonder, Jay, if you could introduce yourself quickly.
Oh yeah, surely. So hello everyone. My name is Jay, and I'm currently serving as the CEO and the lead engineer for my startup based in India. And we aim to indigenize drone industry in India while potentially creating a significant impact on the global drone front. So a little bit about more, also a little bit more about myself. About 7 to 8 years of experience with software development and hardware and tinkering in general. And I have educated a lot of people in web development and electronics front. And currently, we are developing technologies and systems that aim to standardize the essential features in drone technologies like charging, flight control, communications, and in general, building a more of a modular system for drones, very similar to what Arduino is doing actually for electronics. And this should hopefully enable teams all over the world to focus on solving the more challenging and impactful problems rather than the mundane tasks that often slows down. And additionally, we also craft innovative solutions like high G propellers. Like those are propellers which are focused for high G maneuvers. Like you might need sometimes to even withstand up to 4Gs, depending upon a war situation. Then weaponizing the drones and then making the gimbals and then integrating the cameras with them. So yeah, so that's a little bit about what we do. That's about it. I think you just muted your mic again.
And again, I've done it.
Yeah,
I've put
issues.
Jay's LinkedIn profile into the chat. Everyone wants to follow up with it. Now, I remember when I spoke to you earlier, you were talking about DJI, who's
Oh
kind of a
yeah.
Godzilla in the
Oh
drone
yeah.
space.
Truly, truly.
And I know a lot of people in that are in this conversation or watching it online afterwards, they've got their own Godzilla. They're entering
Oh,
into the drone and geospatial space. They're a startup, but there's a Godzilla. So next to them, how do you enter a market, find your own little niche in between Godzilla's toes, as it were, and find your own way forward? If you can give us, because I know this is something you've been very focused on.
yeah.
I wonder if you could
Yes,
talk to
surely.
that.
Surely, Jose. So yeah, so ultimately, if you see how to build a drone, it comes back to 6 simple steps. Decide what kind of a drone you want, know what the requirements are, then design the drone, and then write software for it, build it and test it, and then deploy it and do it all over again to make it better and better and better. Essentially, it's just that. For a developer, it's just that. But the issue comes down to the policies laid down by countries. Nobody wants random flying objects out in their airspace. We don't want any UFO conspiracies, do we now? So every country has its own policies and its own regulation of the airspace, and there's no current global integration. So, like you said, you are asking how to find your own niche into the market. So I will be majorly focusing on the drone market and how we found our niche. So here's the thing. USA has the most lenient policies when it comes to drones and flying drones. And so does the EU. But, and this coming from India, I can say this, that India does have a very strict drone policies, but it's nowhere near what details the Chinese people go to. They have registration for the drones, they have pilot licensing, they have geofencing for aerospaces, they have sandbox zones for specialized testings, they have 5G integration. Right now, 5G as an internet is just starting to come out to the world, and China is already integrating that with the drones. Their policies are laid so well for commercial focus, the agricultural focus, the delivery focus, that they're actually incentivizing companies who are working that. Simple as that. And additionally, nobody dares to bat an eye on this. Chinese government has their eyes straight on everyone, and they make sure everyone is complying to the orders, everyone is complying to the registrations. So that's what sets apart DJI. So that's what gives DJI its niche. And not to mention, it has been a long time that DJI is being into the market. So if realistically you think that you are gonna come as a newcomer and beat down DJI, it's like facing up an avalanche alone. Like you have your hands like these and you're trying to stop an avalanche. You just can't do that. But what you can do is wait for the avalanche to come down and then dig your way out. So here's something. The globally, or well, nationally, every government puts in their own policies and the standardizations. Internationally as well, there are ISO standards like ISO 21384, then ISO 23629, RTCA standards, and then you have ASTM standards, and there are a lot of many standards. So maybe we can get back to it in detail in personal communication. But yeah, but there's the issue. All of these standards are not catering the basics. Like Bohan said before, Bodan. Oh, sorry for messing up your name, Bodan. So, like, it's the main problem developers face is interoperability. And interoperability can only happen when we standardize stuff. So there is a huge scope for standardization. So like if you see, drones and UAV technologies today are at the same point where the silicon industry was during the 70s and 80s. Everyone else doing is their own thing. Intel's doing their own thing, Apple's doing their own thing, Dell is doing their own thing. But after a certain while, there was organizations that like IEEE, ITU, which set apart standards and provided guaranteed IP access. And this guaranteed IP access came along with two benefits. First, you don't have to spend billions of dollars developing something that has already been developed. You can spend millions and give it to someone who has already worked on it and then simply use it. That allows you to build better chips. And something is same like there in the EV market. So for charging, I don't know how many of you are using electronic vehicles, but we have our open charging alliances for EVs charging. So they have their own protocol, open charge point protocol. There are these standardizations put into place so that no matter where you are, anywhere in the world, you can work with any other technology given that it supports a certain standard. So that standard currently in drone market is extremely varied. We don't know where we are going with it. So ultimately, all the stakeholders just have to come together and decide on something. And so, yeah, there is a huge scope for standardization, like power requirements. So a lot of countries are already standardizing their drones and classifying their drones. So you can have some standardization in that domain. And ultimately, it comes down to the part manufacturers. The issue is every company wants to build their own parts to maintain the exclusivity that comes with the niche. But here's the thing, that's never gonna happen. If you are going to make a part for $50 and somebody else is making something like that for 10, then there's no practical reason why a person would buy a $50 part. So that's where standardization comes into picture. Standardized connectors, standardized communications, standardized frequencies. And here's the issue with drones. They share airspace with huge aircrafts. And we don't want any accident. So that's another scope for standardization, safety, air traffic management. So FFA does have its own software, I suppose. But again, most governments aren't working actively towards drone technologies because it's not there yet. Governments cannot invest so much money into it because it's still a new niche. So that's where we come in. That's where private equities come in, and they make services for other private equities and private vendors, and that allows us to operate more efficiently. And that's exactly how we beat China in the race. Like, I think you have got your mic mute again.
Jay, can I cut you off there because we're running out of time. I want to bring on
No
our final
issues, no
speaker.
issues, no issues.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, sure.
And they're gonna go remove and add spotlight. Hello, Abbas. You're on mute, by the way.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm sorry, Abbas. This is a danger sometimes of appearing last. And last but not least, and I wonder if you could introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Jose. I'm Abbas Kiasari. Just a quick intro. I did my PhD in Sweden, 2013. My focus was on performance evaluation and mathematical modeling of computer networks. And then I moved to the UK, work in academia, University of Manchester and King's College London, work as a researcher. And then I jumped to the industry, start my geospatial data science career. I was in a couple of startups. And last year I joined Aon as a geospatial data scientist, work on actually fleet risk management modeling.
Okay. So, what role does data science play in geospatial data, geospatial products?
I believe data science is at the heart of the modern geospatial product development. transforming raw location data into actionable insights. Like other domains, it begins with data collection and integration, where data engineers and data scientists gather and combine spatial data from various sources like satellite images, like GPS devices, telematic sensors like IMUs, and even social media. This integration allows a more holistic view of geographic areas. So in the next step, so once data is gathered, data scientists, they clean, pre-process, or organize data to ensure it's ready for analysis. This is essential, actually. So, the data science is part of computer science. In computer science, there is a concept known as GIGO, G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out, which highlights that poor quality or biased input data leads to a similarly poor quality or garbage output. For geospatial data, cleaning includes tasks such as correcting location error and filling data gaps. For example, when a vehicle enters a tunnel and lose the GPS signal. The next step is EDA, which stands for exploratory data analysis, like other domain as well, where data scientists use visualization and spatial analysis technique such as heat maps, clustering, or aggregating data on geospatial grids like H3, Google S2, or GeoHashes to uncover trends and patterns. These insights help developer understand spatial relationship and identifying area with high foot traffic for business planning. Beyond this, actually, data science also play a key role in optimizing and recommendation systems. Algorithm can help with routing in logistics, such as finding the shortest delivery path for an Amazon driver, or identifying the least hilly route for a cyclist, or suggesting nearby restaurants based on the user preferences. You are mute of the, yeah.
I caught myself that time. And I'm paranoid because I don't want to be popping on the screen in the recording when the drilling goes. Now you were talking about data quality and inconsistencies, like you gave the example of a car going through a tunnel and losing the GPS signals. And increasingly, you've got organizations that are managing large amounts of data, geospatial data, and they're coming from a variety of sources and a variety of formats. How can organizations manage that? Do you have a couple of practices or tips? I know that's a big, or is that too big a question to ask?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. Managing large volumes of raster and vector data from diverse sources and formats could be tricky. To handle this, we rely on strategies such as automated pipelines, spatial databases, data versioning, and quality check. These approaches help manage large, complex geospatial data sets effectively, ensuring the development of robust geospatial products. Let's start with data pipeline. Organizations can establish data pipeline to ingest and pre-process data. In one of my previous roles, we received a few billion footfall traffic every day from various suppliers in different formats. We had CSV files, GeoJSON, and Parquet file. They are all vector data, actually, for the footfall. Our data pipeline automatically handle transformation to align format and clean data as it arrived. This automation saves time and money and reduce error for the future use as well. For a storage, organization often use spatial databases like PostGIS. or more recently, cloud-based solutions that are optimized for handling complex geospatial data structure and large volume. Cloud platforms are useful for data scalability, allowing organization to store large amount of data sets and expand the storage as needed. A good example of a recent platform, modern platform, is Apache Sedona, a cluster computing system designed for processing large scale spatial data. And another strategy, as I mentioned, is data versioning, which is very important for managing updates as geospatial data often changes with new measurement or say sensor updates. Tools that support data versioning like DVC, it's similar for Git. For code, we have DVC for data versioning, that organizations track changes, ensure model stay accurate actually. And finally, data quality, as I mentioned, data quality checks are essential for ensuring accuracy since spatial data is prone to noise and gaps. As I gave you an example, organizations use validation framework that perform automated checks for error, missing values, and other inconsistencies before data is analyzed. And mute again.
I should know this. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I should be better at this. I've done enough webinars. I wonder, do you have experience using geospatial data to train AI? And what challenges do organizations face when they're using geospatial data sets to train models?
Yeah, of course, in data science, yeah, we need training, and training model with geospatial data come with unique challenges due to its complexity and scale. First, the large volume of spatial data, like high-resolution satellite images, can strain storage and processing capabilities. Organizations need powerful hardware or cloud resources to handle this scale, which could be costly. Second, geospatial data often has different resolution. For example, satellite image might be a high resolution for urban areas, but low resolution for rural areas. Model need consistent data quality, so pre-processing steps like resampling and normalizing resolution are necessary, which adds to the complexity and model training. The spatial data, they have dependencies that traditional machine learning models don't account for, such as spatial autocorrelation, where nearby locations have similar values. Ignoring these dependencies can lead to a biased prediction. Data scientists may need to spatially aware model to modify standard model to handle this dependency accurately. And the last thing I can mention is labeling geospatial data. For example, labeling the land use or identifying feature in satellite image often requires manual effort from experts. This process is time consuming and expensive, especially for high quality data set. So to put in a nutshell, so data volume, a varying resolution, what I said, spatial dependencies and labeling difficulties are all significant challenges in training model with geospatial data.
Thank you so much for that, Abbas. That's very useful.
Thank
And
you. Thank
I
you.
want to thank all my speakers. And I'm sorry we ran out of time. And this is I didn't want to enforce time limits on people because I was really interested in what people were saying. But I'm going to there's going to be a link to the replay. I'll be distributing that on, and I'm also going to be chopping every speaker's talk down in little clips and distributing them about. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Thanks again to all the speakers. I learned a lot, which is always a good sign. And have a great day.
You too. Thank you. Bye all.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.